The morning sun shone through the tall glass windows of the Montgomery Enterprises building in downtown San Francisco. The 60-story tower gleamed like a silver needle against the blue sky. Inside, on the top floor, Jack Montgomery adjusted his custom-made Italian tie as he prepared for the day's interviews. Jack was 45 years old with salt and pepper hair that made him look distinguished rather than old. His suit cost more than what most people earned in a month. As the CEO of Montgomery Enterprises, one of the fastest-growing tech companies in America, he was used to getting what he wanted, when he wanted it. "Mr. Montgomery, your 9 o'clock interview is here," his assistant said through the intercom. Jack pressed a button. "Send them in 5 minutes. I want to review the resume again." He picked up the folder on his desk and opened it. The name at the top read, Lily Hudson. Jack frowned as he looked at her education and work history. State University, not an Ivy League school. Experience at small companies, nothing impressive. And her address, Oakdale, a tiny farming town hours away from the city. Jack sighed. He didn't know why Human Resources had even scheduled this interview. Montgomery Enterprises needed a new marketing director who could handle million-dollar accounts and work with important clients. They needed someone with connections and polish, not some country girl from a farm town. A knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. His assistant opened it and a young woman walked in. Lily Hudson was 28 years old with brown hair pulled back in a simple style. She wore a navy blue blazer and skirt that were clean and professional, but clearly not designer brands. She carried a plain leather bag instead of the luxury purses that most women in the office had. "Good morning, Mr. Montgomery," Lily said with a smile. Her voice was clear and confident. "Thank you for taking the time to meet with me today." Jack stood up and gave her a quick handshake, not bothering to smile back. "Have a seat, Ms. Hudson." As Lily sat down, 4 other people entered the room. They were the other executives who would help decide who got the job. There was Patricia Wells, the chief financial officer, a stern woman in her 50s who rarely approved of anything. Next to her was Greg Daniels, the head of sales, who was always looking at his phone. Then came Nancy Martinez, the head of human resources, who actually seemed interested in the interview. Last was Ben Kelly, the current marketing manager who would work directly with whoever they hired. They all sat down at the large glass table. Jack remained standing, looking down at Lily from his full height. "So, Ms. Hudson," Jack began, not hiding the doubt in his voice. "I see you're from Oakdale. Isn't that mostly just farms and fields?" Lily nodded. "Yes, it is. My family has owned a dairy farm there for 3 generations. I grew up helping my father run it." Patricia Wells raised an eyebrow and exchanged a look with Greg. Jack barely held back a laugh. "A dairy farm," Jack repeated slowly, as if he was talking about something strange and foreign. "And now you want to direct marketing campaigns worth millions of dollars for one of the biggest tech companies in the country?" Lily sat up straighter. "My resume shows that I've successfully managed marketing campaigns for Miller's Hardware and the Oakdale Community Bank," Jack interrupted, reading from her resume with a smirk. "Hardly the same level as what we do here," Greg Daniels finally looked up from his phone. "Do they even have internet out there in farm country?" he asked with a chuckle. "We do," Lily replied calmly. "Though sometimes the cows chew through the cables." She smiled, trying to break the tension with a joke. No one laughed. Patricia Wells wrote something on her notepad and frowned. "Ms. Hudson," Jack continued, walking around the table slowly like a shark circling its prey. "Our clients are Fortune 500 companies. They expect a certain level of sophistication. They want to work with people who understand their world. People who belong in boardrooms, not barns." Nancy Martinez from HR shifted uncomfortably. "Perhaps we should focus on Ms. Hudson's qualifications, rather than her background." Jack waved her suggestion away. "I am focusing on qualifications. Cultural fit is important, Nancy. Our marketing director will be the face of our company to major clients." He turned back to Lily. "Tell me, Ms. Hudson, have you ever even been to a 5-star restaurant? Do you know which fork to use for the salad course?" Lily's cheeks turned slightly pink, but her voice remained steady. I believe my skills in connecting with different audiences would be more relevant to the position than my dining etiquette, Mr. Montgomery. Different audiences? Jack laughed. You mean like sheep and cows? This time Greg and Patricia both laughed out loud. Even Ben Kelly, who had been quiet until now, allowed himself a small smile. Lily took a deep breath. She had expected some resistance, but not this level of mockery. Still, she had prepared for this interview for weeks. She wouldn't give up so easily. Actually, she said, pulling out a folder from her bag, I've prepared a presentation on how Montgomery Enterprises could expand its market share by targeting rural businesses, a sector your company has completely overlooked. Jack barely glanced at the folder. Rural businesses? Ms. Hudson, we deal with technology and innovation. The future, not tractors and hay bales. Technology is changing every industry, including agriculture, Lily countered. Farmers today use GPS systems, automated equipment, and data analytics. They have significant buying power and technology needs that no one is meeting properly. For a moment, Ben Kelly looked interested. That's actually not our market, Jack cut him off. We focus on urban centers and international expansion. That's where the real money is. Patricia Wells nodded in agreement. Our board would never approve a rural initiative. The return on investment would be minimal. Lily tried again. With respect, Ms. Wells, the numbers suggest otherwise. Rural businesses spend over. I think we've heard enough about farming economics, Jack interrupted. He sat down at the head of the table and looked at Lily with barely hidden contempt. Let's move on to something more relevant. How would you handle our upcoming product launch for VirtuTech's new AI platform? Lily recognized the trap. VirtuTech was Montgomery Enterprises' biggest client, but their new platform hadn't been announced publicly yet. There was no way she could know about it unless she had insider information. I wouldn't want to speak on something without having all the facts, Lily said carefully, but my approach to any major product launch involves understanding the target audience, creating a compelling narrative around the product's benefits, and developing a multi-channel strategy that generic textbook answer, Jack said dismissively. Not very impressive. For the next 30 minutes, the interview continued in the same pattern. Every answer Lily gave was met with skepticism or mockery. Whenever she tried to show her knowledge or preparation, Jack would cut her off or twist her words. Nancy Martinez occasionally tried to steer the conversation in a more professional direction, but Jack dominated the room. By the end, Lily's confident smile had faded, though she still held her head high. Well, Ms. Hudson, Jack said, finally standing up to signal the end of the interview. Thank you for coming in today. I think we've seen what we needed to see. Lily stood up and gathered her materials, including the presentation folder that no one had bothered to look at. Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Montgomery. Despite how this interview went, I still believe I could bring value to your company. Jack gave her a patronizing smile. We'll be in touch. Nancy will show you out. As Lily turned to leave, she paused at the door. Something in her expression changed. Her eyes, previously warm and eager to please, now held a spark of determination. Just one more thing before I go, Mr. Montgomery, she said, turning back. There's something about me that wasn't on my resume. Something I think you should know. The room fell silent. Jack Montgomery stood frozen by his desk, his hand still raised in dismissal. The other executives exchanged curious glances. Nancy Martinez, who had been about to escort Lily out, stopped and turned back. What might that be, Ms. Hudson? Jack asked with a hint of impatience in his voice. He checked his expensive watch, making it clear that he had more important things to do. Lily Hudson reached into her plain leather bag and pulled out a different folder than the one she had tried to show earlier. This one was thicker and had the logo of a major financial institution on it. I think you should sit down for this, Mr. Montgomery, Lily said. Her voice had changed. The eager-to-please tone was gone, replaced by a calm confidence that made even Patricia Wells pay attention. Jack didn't sit. Instead, he crossed his arms over his chest and raised an eyebrow. I prefer to stand, thank you. Lily nodded and opened the folder. As I mentioned, I grew up on a dairy farm in Oakdale. What I didn't mention is what kind of farm it is. She pulled out several glossy photos and laid them on the glass table. They showed a massive operation with modern buildings, high-tech equipment, and hundreds of acres of land. Hudson Organic Dairy isn't just any farm, Lily continued as the executives leaned forward to look at the photos. It's the largest organic dairy supplier on the West Coast, with contracts with major grocery chains across 12 states. Greg Daniels picked up one of the photos showing a line of milk products with the Hudson logo. His eyes widened in recognition. Wait, Hudson Dairy? I buy that milk every week. It's the premium brand at Whole Foods. Yes, Lily said with a small smile. That's us. Jack's expression didn't change, but he did finally sit down. So your family runs a successful dairy business. That's nice, but it still doesn't qualify you for... I'm not finished, Mr. Montgomery, Lily interrupted, something no one had dared to do to Jack in years. She pulled out more documents from the folder. 20 years ago, my father, Peter Hudson, developed a new organic farming method that changed the entire industry. She placed a copy of a patent in front of Jack. This method reduced costs by 40% while increasing yield and improving milk quality. Every major organic dairy in the country now uses some version of it. Nancy Martinez let out a small gasp. The Hudson method? That was your father? Lily nodded. Yes. And this, she said, pulling out another document, is the licensing agreement when my father sold the patent to Agritech Industries. Jack reluctantly looked at the paper. His eyes stopped at the number at the bottom of the page. The color drained from his face. That's, he began but couldn't finish. $150 million, Lily completed for him, plus ongoing royalties that add about $7 million to our family income every year. The room was completely silent now. Patricia Wells had stopped writing in her notepad. Greg Daniels wasn't looking at his phone anymore. Ben Kelly's mouth was slightly open in shock. But that's not all, Lily continued, seemingly enjoying the moment despite her calm exterior. After selling the patent, my father became an angel investor in agricultural technology startups. She laid out several more, documents showing the Hudson family investments in companies whose names everyone in the room recognized. One of them had gone public last year with a valuation of over $1 billion. My family's net worth, Lily said quietly, is currently more than triple the annual revenue of Montgomery Enterprises. Jack's face had turned an interesting shade of red. He opened his mouth and closed it again, looking for the first time like he didn't know what to say. So, to answer your earlier question, Mr. Montgomery, Lily continued, her voice still calm but now with an edge to it. Yes, I do know which fork to use for the salad course. In fact, I've had dinner with 3 U.S. presidents, the Queen of England, and most of the Fortune 100 CEOs. She gathered the documents and started putting them back in her folder. I don't usually share this information in job interviews because I want to be hired for my skills, not my family connections. But since you seem so concerned about what did you call it, my cultural fit? Nancy Martinez couldn't hold back a small smile. Patricia Wells looked like she had swallowed something sour. Greg Daniels was frantically typing something on his phone, probably looking up Hudson Dairy online. But this still doesn't explain why you're here, Jack finally managed to say, finding his voice at last. Why would someone with your family's resources want to work for someone else? Why not start your own company? It was a good question, and Lily appreciated that he had asked it directly instead of continuing to dismiss her. Because I believe in earning things on my own merit, she replied honestly. I didn't want to use my family's money to buy my way into the business world. I wanted to build my own career step by step. She paused and looked around at the executives. Also, despite your company's interesting interview techniques, Montgomery Enterprises has an impressive track record. Your technology solutions are innovative, and your global reach is exactly what I'm looking for in my next career move. Lily pulled out the presentation folder she had tried to show earlier. As I was saying before, I believe there's a huge untapped market in rural areas that could benefit from your products, and I know exactly how to reach that market. This time, when she pushed the folder across the table, Jack took it and opened it. The other executives gathered around to look, Inside was a detailed market analysis of rural technology needs, potential revenue streams, and a 5-year expansion plan that could potentially increase Montgomery's client base by 30%. I've spent the last 3 years analyzing this market gap, Lily explained as they flipped through her presentation. No major tech company has properly addressed the needs of rural businesses and communities. They all think like you do, that the real money is in urban centers and international markets. She pointed to a chart in her presentation. But the combined purchasing power of rural America is over $900 billion annually. And they're hungry for technology solutions that understand their specific needs. Ben Kelly, the marketing manager, was nodding as he read. These numbers are impressive, and your strategy for market penetration is actually quite brilliant. Jack was still struggling to process everything. The farm girl he had been mocking just minutes ago was actually from one of the wealthiest families in the agricultural sector, and she had just presented him with a potentially game-changing business opportunity. "Why didn't you put any of this on your resume?" he asked, genuinely curious now. Lily smiled. "Would you have treated me differently if you had known who my family was?" Jack had the decency to look embarrassed. "Yes," he admitted. "Exactly," Lily said. "And that would have defeated the purpose. I want to work somewhere where my ideas matter more than my bank account." She stood up and straightened her blazer. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have another interview across town in an hour. Please keep the presentation, it's a copy. If you're interested in discussing it further, you have my contact information." As Lily turned to leave for the second time, Jack Montgomery did something he rarely did. He stood up and extended his hand to her. "Ms. Hudson," he said, all traces of mockery gone from his voice, "I owe you an apology for how this interview was conducted. Would you consider staying a bit longer to discuss your ideas with us? I promise we'll be more professional this time." Lily looked at his extended hand for a long moment. Then she looked around at the other executives who were all watching with various expressions of shock, embarrassment, and newfound respect on their faces. "I appreciate the offer, Mr. Montgomery," she said finally. "But I think I've learned what I needed to know about Montgomery Enterprises today. If you're still interested in my ideas after reviewing my presentation, feel free to call me." With that, Lily Hudson walked out of the room, leaving behind 5 speechless executives and the lingering question of whether she had ever actually wanted the job at all, or if she had just wanted to teach Jack Montgomery a lesson in humility. The door closed behind Lily Hudson with a soft click that seemed to echo in the silent conference room. For several long moments, no one spoke. Jack Montgomery stood frozen, his hand still extended where Lily had left it hanging in the air. Slowly, he lowered it and turned to face his executive team. "Well," he said finally. "That was unexpected." Greg Daniels let out a nervous laugh. "Unexpected? Jack, we just insulted the daughter of one of the wealthiest agricultural families in America, a family that could probably buy our company if they wanted to." Patricia Wells, who had been one of the most dismissive during the interview, now looked through Lily's presentation with growing concern. "This market analysis is incredibly detailed. The projections look solid. We really might be missing a huge opportunity here." Nancy Martinez from HR crossed her arms and gave Jack a pointed look. "I told you we needed to change our interview process. This is exactly why we shouldn't judge candidates based on superficial factors." Jack ignored her criticism and picked up the folder Lily had left behind. He flipped through the pages with growing interest. The more he read, the more his expression changed from embarrassment to excitement. "Ben," he said to the marketing manager, "what do you think of her rural market strategy?" Ben Kelly had been the quietest during the interview, but now he spoke with enthusiasm. "It's brilliant, honestly. No one is addressing this market properly. The way she connects our existing products to rural needs could open up an entirely new customer base for us." Jack nodded slowly, an idea forming in his mind. "We need to get her back in here." "After how we treated her?" Nancy asked skeptically. "I doubt she'll return your calls." "She will," Jack said with sudden determination. "Because we're going to offer her something she can't refuse." He turned to his assistant who had been silently watching from the corner of the room. "Carol, cancel my meetings for the rest of the day. and get me everything you can find on Lily Hudson and Hudson Dairy." As his team dispersed, Jack remained in the conference room, studying Lily's presentation. The numbers were compelling. If her projections were even half right, Montgomery Enterprises could increase their revenue significantly by expanding into rural markets. Meanwhile, across town, Lily sat in her car in the parking garage of Montgomery Enterprises. She hadn't actually left the building yet. Her hands shook slightly as she gripped the steering wheel. The confrontation had gone exactly as she had planned, but that didn't make it any less stressful. She pulled out her phone and dialed a number. After 2 rings, a deep voice answered. "How did it go, sweetheart?" Peter Hudson asked his daughter. "Just like we expected, Dad," Lily replied, a small smile forming on her lips. "They judged the book by its cover. When I revealed who I really was, they couldn't believe it." "And did you show them your market strategy?" "Yes. They seemed impressed once they actually looked at it." Peter Hudson chuckled softly. "So what's next? Do you think they'll call you back?" Lily started her car and pulled out of the parking space. "If Jack Montgomery is as smart as his reputation suggests, he will. But I'm not sure I want to work for someone who treats people that way." "Remember why we're doing this, Lily," her father said gently. "It's not just about teaching some arrogant CEO a lesson. It's about creating opportunities for the communities that have supported us all these years." "I know, Dad," Lily sighed. "I just wish there was an easier way." "Nothing worth doing is ever easy," Peter reminded her. "Now go to your next interview. Even if Montgomery calls you back, it's good to have options." Lily ended the call and drove to her next appointment, unaware that back at Montgomery Enterprises, Jack Montgomery was already formulating a plan to bring her back. The next morning, Jack called an emergency meeting with his executive team. They gathered in the same conference room where they had interviewed Lily the day before, but the atmosphere was completely different. Gone was the casual arrogance. Instead, there was a sense of urgency and purpose. "I spent all night reviewing Ms. Hudson's presentation," Jack announced as soon as everyone was seated, "and I've done some additional research on rural markets. She's right. This is a huge opportunity that we've been ignoring." He clicked a button, and a screen lowered from the ceiling. On it appeared a map of the United States with rural areas highlighted in green. These regions represent over 60 million potential customers for our technology solutions. Customers that our competitors are also ignoring. Patricia Wells raised her hand. "But how do we reach these markets? We don't have the infrastructure or the connections." "Lily Hudson does," Jack replied simply. "Her family has relationships with agricultural businesses and rural communities across the country. That, combined with her marketing expertise, makes her uniquely qualified to lead this initiative." Greg Daniels looked skeptical. "After yesterday, why would she want to work with us? She probably has offers from every major company in the valley." Jack smiled. "Because we're going to offer her something no one else can, her own division. Montgomery Rural Technologies, with her as the director reporting directly to me." A murmur went through the room. Creating a new division was a big move, something that would need board approval. "Do you think the board will go for this?" "Ben," Kelly asked, voicing what everyone was thinking. Jack nodded confidently. "I spoke with the chairman this morning. When I showed him the potential revenue projections, he was very supportive. But we need to move fast. Nancy, I need you to reach out to Ms. Hudson today." Nancy Martinez frowned. "I think it might be better if you contacted her personally, Jack. An apology from you would go a long way." Jack hesitated. Apologies didn't come easily to him. In his 20 years as a business leader, he had rarely admitted to being wrong. But he also recognized that this situation required a different approach. "You're right," he conceded. "I'll call her myself." Meanwhile, Lily was sitting in a coffee shop near her apartment, reviewing notes from her second interview the day before. It had gone much better than the one at Montgomery Enterprises. The company, Green Valley Tech, was smaller but had a good reputation and seemed genuinely interested in her ideas. Her phone rang. The screen showed an unfamiliar number with the Montgomery Enterprises area code. Lily took a deep breath before answering. Hello, this is Lily Hudson. Ms. Hudson, this is Jack Montgomery. There was a brief silence as Lily considered how to respond. Mr. Montgomery, this is a surprise. I imagine it is, Jack replied, his tone uncharacteristically humble. First, I want to apologize for yesterday. The way you were treated was unprofessional and disrespectful. There's no excuse for it. Lily hadn't expected such a direct apology. I appreciate that, Mr. Montgomery. Second, Jack continued, I've reviewed your presentation thoroughly. Your rural market strategy is exactly what our company needs. I'd like to meet with you again to discuss a position at Montgomery Enterprises. I'm listening, Lily said cautiously. Not over the phone, Jack insisted. This is something I'd like to discuss in person. Are you available for lunch today? Lily checked her watch. She had planned to spend the day considering her options from the interviews she'd already completed. I could meet at noon. Perfect. There's a restaurant called The Garden on the 55th floor of our building. I'll have them reserve a private dining room for us. After ending the call, Lily sat back in her chair, thinking. Her plan had worked better than she had expected. Jack Montgomery wanted to meet again, and from his tone he was prepared to make a significant offer. She called her father to share the news. Be careful, Lily, Peter Hudson warned after hearing about the lunch invitation. Men like Jack Montgomery don't change overnight. He might just be trying to get your connections without giving you real power in the company. I know, Dad, Lily assured him. I won't accept anything less than what we discussed. If he's not serious about rural expansion, I'll walk away. That's my girl, Peter said proudly. Remember what I always tell you. True worth isn't in what you have, Lily finished for him, but in who you are when no one knows what you have. As noon approached, Lily prepared herself for what might be the most important business lunch of her career. She was no longer just a farmer's daughter seeking approval. She was Lily Hudson, a skilled professional with a vision, ready to negotiate on her own terms. The Garden restaurant on the 55th floor of the Montgomery Enterprises building was known for its beautiful views of the city and its exclusive clientele. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the entire city spread out below like a living map. Important. Business deals were made here daily over expensive meals. Lily arrived exactly at noon. She wore the same navy blue suit as yesterday, a deliberate choice to remind Jack Montgomery that her value had nothing to do with expensive clothes. The host recognized her name immediately. Ms. Hudson, welcome to the Garden. Mr. Montgomery is already waiting for you in the private dining room. Please follow me. As Lily walked through the restaurant, she noticed several people watching her with curious eyes. Word had clearly spread about yesterday's interview. In a company as large as Montgomery Enterprises, gossip traveled fast. The host led her to a separate room at the back of the restaurant. When she entered, Jack Montgomery stood up from the table. He was alone, which surprised Lily. She had expected him to bring some of his executive team. Ms. Hudson, thank you for coming, Jack said, gesturing to the chair across from him. His tone was respectful, nothing like the mocking voice he had used yesterday. Lily sat down and placed her leather bag beside her chair. Thank you for the invitation, Mr. Montgomery. A waiter appeared immediately with water and menus. Jack waved the menus away. I took the liberty of ordering for us already. I hope you don't mind. The chef here prepares an excellent farm-to-table lunch that I thought you might appreciate. Lily smiled slightly at his obvious attempt to connect with her background. That sounds fine. When the waiter left, Jack leaned forward. Again, I want to apologize for yesterday. There's no excuse for how you were treated in that interview. Apology accepted, Lily said simply. She saw no need to make this more difficult than it needed to be. But I'm curious why you wanted to meet today. Jack nodded, getting straight to business. After you left, I spent hours reviewing your presentation on rural markets. Your analysis is thorough and your strategy is sound. I believe you've identified a significant opportunity that my company has been missing. I'm glad you see the potential, Lily replied, keeping her expression neutral despite feeling pleased. But that doesn't explain why you wanted to meet in person. Jack took a deep breath. I want to offer you a position at Montgomery Enterprises. As the marketing director? The position I originally applied for? No, Jack said, surprising her. Something much bigger. I want to create a new division called Montgomery Rural Technologies, focused specifically on developing and marketing our solutions to rural communities and agricultural businesses. And I want you to lead it. Lily's eyes widened slightly. This was more than she had expected. A new division? With what kind of authority and resources? You would be the division director reporting directly to me, Jack explained. You'd have a budget of $50 million for the first year, with increases based on performance. You'd build your own team and have considerable autonomy in strategy and execution. The waiter returned with their food, a colorful arrangement of fresh vegetables, locally sourced meat, and artisan bread. Neither Lily nor Jack paid much attention to it. That's a significant commitment, Lily said carefully. What prompted this? Yesterday you didn't think rural markets were worth pursuing at all. Jack smiled ruefully. Let's just say your presentation was very convincing. And after doing my own research last night, I realized you were right. There's an untapped market worth billions that none of our competitors are addressing properly. He paused and added, plus I'd rather have you working with us than against us. Your family connections in the agricultural sector would be invaluable. Lily picked up her fork and took a small bite of food while she considered his words. So, this is about my family name and connections? Partly, Jack admitted honestly, but mostly it's about your vision and expertise. Your market analysis shows that you understand both worlds, technology and rural America, in a way that very few people do. That's rare and valuable. Lily appreciated his honesty. And the board has approved this new division? The chairman has given preliminary approval based on the potential revenue. The full board will vote next week, but with the chairman's support, it's essentially a formality. Lily took a sip of water, thinking carefully about her next words. What about the company culture, Mr. Montgomery? Yesterday made it clear that Montgomery Enterprises has some issues with how it treats people who don't fit a certain mold. Jack winced slightly at the reminder. You're right, and that's something I'm committed to changing. Your experience yesterday highlighted a problem that I hadn't fully recognized. He leaned forward, speaking more earnestly now. This morning, I asked Nancy Martinez to review our hiring practices and suggest improvements. We're going to implement bias training for all executives and managers, but change takes time and I need people like you to help drive that change from within. Lily was surprised by his apparent sincerity. Either Jack Montgomery was an excellent actor, or her reveal yesterday had genuinely affected him. I have another offer to consider, Lily said, which was true. Green Valley Tech had called that morning with a competitive offer. I'll need some time to think about this. Of course, Jack agreed. But before you decide, there's one more thing I'd like to show you. He pulled out a tablet and opened a file. This is a draft press release announcing the creation of Montgomery Rural Technologies and your appointment as division director. I wanted you to see that we're serious about this initiative. Lily took the tablet and read through the document. It was indeed a detailed announcement with quotes from Jack and the board chairman, expressing enthusiasm about the new rural focus. Her name and background were presented with respect, highlighting her expertise rather than her family connections. This is well done, Lily acknowledged, handing back the tablet. But I still need time to consider all my options. Jack nodded. I understand. But I hope you'll consider what you could accomplish with the resources of Montgomery Enterprises behind you. Your vision for connecting rural communities with cutting-edge technology could transform millions of lives. He was good, Lily thought. He had found exactly the right thing to say to appeal to her values. Her father had always taught her that. Their wealth came with responsibility to help others, especially the farming communities that had supported their family for generations. I'll give you my answer by the end of the week, Lily promised as they finished their lunch. That's all I ask, Jack said, standing as she prepared to leave. And regardless of your decision, I want you to know that meeting you has changed how I think about my company and its culture. That alone has been valuable. As Lily left the restaurant, her phone buzzed with a text from her father. How did it go? She texted back, better than expected. Call you in 10 minutes. Outside the building, Lily found a quiet bench in a small park across the street. She called her father and explained Jack's offer in detail. A new division? Peter Hudson sounded impressed. That's a bold move on his part. Yes, Lily agreed, and the resources he's offering would allow me to implement the Rural Technology Initiative on a much larger scale than I could at Green Valley Tech. But you're hesitating, her father observed. He knew his daughter well. Lily sighed. I'm just not sure if Jack Montgomery has really changed or if he's just putting on an act to get what he wants. Yesterday he was mocking farmers, and today he's proposing a $50 million investment in rural markets. People can change when they realize they've made a mistake, Peter said thoughtfully. Especially when that mistake might cost them money. That's exactly it, Lily replied. Is he doing this because he values what I can bring to the company, or just because he discovered who my family is? There was silence on the line for a moment. Then Peter spoke again, his voice gentle but firm. Lily, do you remember why we decided not to put our family name on your resume in the first place? To see if companies would value me for my skills rather than my connections, Lily answered. Exactly. And this Montgomery fellow failed that test spectacularly, Peter chuckled. But now he's offering you real power and resources to do something important. Something that could help a lot of people in communities like ours. So you think I should take the offer? Lily asked. I think you should ask yourself what matters more. Teaching Jack Montgomery a lesson about judging people or using his resources to make a difference for rural communities that need better technology. Lily watched the people walking by, thinking about her father's words. He was right, as usual. Her goal had never been to embarrass Jack Montgomery. It had been to find a position where she could make a real impact. I need to sleep on it, she told her father. But I'm leaning toward accepting with some conditions. That's my smart girl, Peter said proudly. Make sure those conditions protect both your authority and your values. As Lily ended the call, she looked up at the towering Montgomery Enterprises building gleaming in the afternoon sun. Yesterday, she had walked out of that building feeling vindicated but uncertain about her future. Today she was considering walking back in, not as a supplicant seeking approval, but as a leader with the power to create real change. 3 days after her lunch with Jack Montgomery, Lily Hudson sat in her apartment surrounded by papers. On one side of her coffee table lay the offer from Green Valley Tech, a good position with decent pay and a friendly work environment. On the other side was Jack Montgomery's proposal for her to lead the new Rural Technologies division. Lily had spent these days researching Montgomery Enterprises more deeply, talking to former employees, and making lists of pros and cons. She had also drafted a detailed set of conditions for accepting Jack's offer. Her phone rang. It was Jack. Ms. Hudson, he said when she answered. I hope I'm not disturbing you. Not at all, Lily replied, though she had been deep in thought when the phone rang. I was wondering if you had made a decision about our offer. The board meeting is tomorrow, and I'd like to present them with a complete plan including your acceptance if you've decided to join us. Lily took a deep breath. I have made a decision, Mr. Montgomery, but before I share it, I'd like to meet with you and discuss some conditions I have. There was a brief pause on the line. Conditions? Yes. If I'm going to lead this new division, there are certain guarantees I need. Jack seemed to consider this for a moment. That's reasonable. When would you like to meet? Today, if possible. 4 o'clock at your office? I'll clear my schedule, Jack agreed. At 4 o'clock sharp, Lily walked into the Montgomery Enterprises building for the third time that week. This time, the security guards greeted her by name, and Jack's assistant was waiting in the lobby to escort her directly to his office. Jack stood as she entered, gesturing to a seating area with comfortable chairs rather than having her sit across from his desk. It was a small thing, but it signaled a more equal relationship than their previous meetings. Thank you for coming, Ms. Hudson, Jack said as they sat down. I'm eager to hear your conditions. Lily opened her leather bag and took out a document. I've put everything in writing, but I'll summarize the key points. She handed the document to Jack and began. First, I want complete authority over hiring for my division. I need to build a team that understands both technology and rural markets. Jack nodded as he scanned the document. That's reasonable. Second, I want a guaranteed budget for 3 years, not just one. Rural market development is a long-term strategy, and I need to know the resources won't be cut if we don't show immediate results. Jack's eyebrows rose slightly at this, but he nodded again. We can work that out. Third, Lily continued, I want a seat on the executive committee. If rural technologies are going to be a real priority for Montgomery Enterprises, the division needs representation at the highest level of company decision-making. This time Jack looked up from the document with surprise. A seat on the executive committee was usually reserved for people with years of experience in the company. That's unusual for a new division head. It is, Lily agreed. But it's necessary, if you're serious about this initiative. Jack studied her face for a moment, then returned to reading. What else? Fourth, I want a comprehensive review of the company's hiring practices and culture, with concrete steps to address any biases. Nancy Martinez mentioned you've already started this process, but I want it formalized as part of my agreement. Jack nodded slowly. I can see why that would be important to you given your experience. And finally, Lily said, reaching the most important condition, I want the division to establish a technology education program for rural schools and communities. 10% of our budget should go toward providing training, equipment, and internet access to underserved areas. Jack looked up from the document, genuine surprise on his face. This isn't about profit. No, Lily said simply. It's about purpose. If we're going to bring technology to rural America, we need to ensure everyone can benefit from it, not just those who can afford to pay. Jack was quiet for a long moment, studying the document. Lily waited patiently. This was the test of whether his change of heart was genuine or just a business calculation. Finally, he looked up. These are significant conditions, Miss Hudson. They are, Lily agreed. And they're non-negotiable. I have another offer that I'm considering, and while it doesn't offer the same resources as Montgomery Enterprises, it does offer a supportive environment and shared values. Jack placed the document on the table between them. If I agree to these conditions, will you accept the position? Yes, Lily said without hesitation. Because then I'll know you're serious about this initiative and about changing the company culture. Jack extended his hand. Then we have a deal. I'll have legal draw up a formal agreement including all your conditions. Lily shook his hand, feeling a mix of excitement and caution. Thank you, Mr. Montgomery. I look forward to working with you, assuming the board approves the new division tomorrow. They will, Jack said confidently. Especially now that I can tell them you've accepted the position. The next day, the Montgomery Enterprises Board unanimously approved the creation of the new Rural Technologies Division with Lily Hudson as its director. When Jack presented Lily's conditions as part of the package, there were some raised eyebrows, particularly about the education program, but Jack defended it convincingly. This isn't just about opening new markets, he told the board. It's about positioning Montgomery Enterprises as a leader in bringing technology to underserved communities. The goodwill and positive publicity will be worth far more than the 10% of the budget we're allocating to education. 2 weeks later, Lily sat in her new office on the 47th floor of the Montgomery building. The space was still being set up, with boxes of equipment waiting to be unpacked and walls waiting to be decorated. But her team was taking shape. She had hired 10 people so far, a mix of technology experts and people with backgrounds in rural development. There was a knock on her open door. Jack Montgomery stood there, looking different than he had during their first meeting. His expensive suit was the same, but his expression was more open, less arrogant. Do you have a minute? He asked. Of course, Lily replied, gesturing to a chair. Jack sat down and looked around the half-finished office. How's it going so far? Good, Lily said. We're making progress. I've found some excellent people for the team, and we're developing our first product proposals. I'm glad to hear it, Jack said. He seemed to be working up to something. I wanted to tell you that your father called me yesterday. Lily's eyes widened in surprise. My father called you? He didn't mention that to me. Jack nodded. He wanted to know if I was treating you well. He's protective. That sounds like him, Lily said, smiling slightly. What did you tell him? I told him the truth, that you're already challenging the way we do things around here, and that it's exactly what this company needed. Jack paused, then added, I also thanked him. For what? Lily asked, curious. For raising a daughter who wasn't afraid to stand up to someone like me, Jack replied honestly. It's not something I'm used to, but it's something I needed to experience. Lily was touched by his sincerity. Thank you for telling me that. Jack stood up to leave. The executive committee meets on Monday mornings at 9 a.m. As our newest member, you'll be expected to present a brief update on your division's progress each week. I'll be ready, Lily assured him. After Jack left, Lily called her father. Why? Didn't you tell me you called Jack Montgomery? She asked when he answered. Peter Hudson chuckled. I wanted to size him up for myself, see if his change of heart was genuine. And? Lily asked. What did you think? I think he's learning, her father said thoughtfully. People like Jack Montgomery don't change overnight, but he seems to be trying, and that's a start. I think so too, Lily agreed. Are you happy with your decision? Peter asked. Lily looked around her new office at the plans spread across her desk for bringing high-speed internet to rural schools and the proposals for farm management software that could help small family farms compete with large corporate operations. Yes, she said confidently, I made the right choice. Here I can make a real difference. That's all that matters then, her father said proudly. Remember, true worth isn't in what you have, Lily finished for him, smiling, but in who you are when no one knows what you have. 6 months later, Montgomery Rural Technologies launched its first product line, affordable technology solutions designed specifically for small and medium-sized farms. The products were an immediate success, and the division's educational program had already provided technology training to teachers in over 50 rural schools. At the company's annual meeting, Jack Montgomery introduced Lily to the shareholders. 1 year ago, Montgomery Enterprises was missing a huge opportunity, he told the crowd. We were focused on urban markets and ignoring the potential of rural America. It took someone with unique insight and courage to show us what we were missing. He gestured to Lily, who stood beside him at the podium. Lily Hudson has not only opened new markets for our company, but has also helped change our corporate culture for the better. Sometimes the most valuable lessons come from the places and the people we least expect. As the audience applauded, Lily thought about how far she had come from that first interview, where Jack had mocked her farming background. The journey hadn't always been easy,